Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and we finally have all our legendary rings. Not that there aren't already legendary rings in the game, but the new ones all revealed. So these are the legendary rings that are going to grant you a talent. If you weren't aware, I'm sure most of you are aware by now. We finally have them all revealed. We only had a few last week. Now we've got them all, so we've got them all presented for you in the background there. Have a little look-see. They are going to grant you one passive talent for your spec. Now, these are kind of unique. There's a little bit different stuff going on here with these legendaries than the ordinary legendaries, and we are getting some extra normal style legendaries that you've been used to throughout Legion. Firstly, it's looking ever more likely day by day that these are in fact going to be a guaranteed reward from finishing the class campaigns, as opposed to something that simply drops like we're used to in the rest of the legendaries. Firstly, the names of them apply exactly the same as the titles that you get from doing your class campaign. The class campaign originally did have the legendary icon over it, so it's likely this is going to be the reward for that. And from balancing perspective, it's likely they want to make sure that everybody has access to this. Because it's granting talents, that means they have to balance around the idea that you have them. And balancing is a very big deal, as we well know. Nobody wants to get underpowered. I wouldn't say overpowered because some people want that, but underpowered to say the least. So if they're going to grant extra talents, and in some cases these talents are going to synergize extremely well with the class changes that we've already seen for 725, which we will be covering in a later video. For example, my Frost Mage had its Thermal Void, which is a buff that we extend via Ice Lance, nerfed. That actually makes a lot of sense now when they're going to grant us a talent which passively increases our chance to extend it. Now they know it's going to not last forever and ever as it already is. By slashing that, they can play around and add more procs and more fun and interactive gameplay to the character. Yeah? It's not about just crushing the buff. It gives them the freedom to add more procs and more interesting things happening for the spec, rather than it being like, oh, overgeared people can do crazy things with it. That's not what we want. That stuff started to make a lot of sense. So the theory at the moment is that when 725 launches and the class campaign gets underway, the reward for doing that will be the rings in a more WoD fashion than a Legion fashion. And then they may be, I'm kind of leaning towards this happening, that these particular rings will be exempt from the 2 legendary limit. Now, I just want to be double sure here. Nothing is confirmed on this. They are not confirmed to be the end of the class campaign, and they are not confirmed to be exempt from the 2 legendary limits. It's my gut feeling based on what they do and how they are acquired that lends itself to that theory. So I want to be doubly clear again here. I'm not saying that 725 will grant us the ability to wear 3 legendaries of our choice. I'm just starting to think, just due to how the game works. That's what I'm basing on, is just how the game works, that these rings might be exempt. So you would technically have 3 legendaries equipped, but the ring wouldn't be a choice. You couldn't say wear 3 different legendaries that you already have in your bags. You could wear 2 of your choice and the ring. So I think that's likely to be the way it goes. But again, not confirmed and could easily just not work out that way. It's just that the way the game works, the way balancing works, I kind of think Blizzard wants to be under the assumption that if you're raiding or PvPing, that you have one of these equipped, because that's how they can work out how your class works. My basis for that is pretty much what the class changes have been so far for various classes, not just my own, and how this reflects back on them. Knowing that these talents are coming in, you can start to go, oh, okay, I kind of see what you're doing here. And that kind of makes a little bit of sense. So that's one big reason, or 2 big reasons there. The other one is they are bringing in more normal legendaries that are going to be part of the pool and be a drop. We've seen the healer ones mainly so far. We'll flash them up for you now. And that means I don't think they want to dilute the pool so much that these very, very obviously powerful rings are just going to be part of the, will I get a Norganons or a Cephas or a Pridas before I get the ring that I really want? I don't think they want to go down that road this time. I think they want to make this a guaranteed acquiring item for everybody, and therefore they know they can work around people having these rings. I do hope that they make them exempt from the 2 legendary limit. I don't really want it to get into a dirty mess of mathematics and working out sims. I don't think we want to do that, which is, which one's better? Is this better? Is that better? With all the choices we currently have with legendaries, if you've been playing a main character since the start of Legion, the likelihood is by now you have quite a few legendaries to choose from, is to throw this into the mix and then having to go to even more external websites to try and figure out exactly whether this talent is worthwhile or not. And also, the opposite side of that, I don't think Blizzard wants as well, is that these rings are so overwhelmingly powerful that you can't afford to wear your other legendaries. I don't think they want to go down that road either. That's why it lends itself to them being exempt from that process. But we'll see. We'll see. My thoughts on adding a talent in. Honestly, I'm okay with it. As much as people tend to like the idea of customizing their character, there tends to be cookie-cutter builds, even with the only 3 choices. The decision to make all the rings give a passive talent, and generally quite good ones for the most part. Some people are confused, like with the warrior ones, like how does this work in there? Although it doesn't make too much of a difference, and the math seems to point to them being very good anyway. For me, it gives us that cool synergy between having two very good talents. Because for most people, the talent row that it sits in, the other talents are really good as well. And we want to do that. It also opens up the option of the potentially dead talent in that tree. Doesn't affect anybody, but usually there's 2 very good ones and 1 that you rarely ever find a use for. If we have one of the passive ones covered via the rings, then that means that those 3rd dead talents might start to make an appearance again. And I'm okay with that. Picking talents that I haven't been able to choose throughout the course of Legion because the other 2 are so much better, even though they potentially are less interesting. I like that. I like that choice. So we're actually coming down to potentially in those rows specifically like an AoE or a single target choice rather than a single target, kind of single target and a bit of AoE, which works all around quite well, which is what most people drift to, or a straight AoE one, which doesn't really apply in a lot of cases. So I quite like that idea that we'll actually get to maybe pick some talents that we haven't been able to pick at all throughout Legion, or at least very rarely. So from that perspective, I'm okay with this being the kind of ultimate reward. Looking at the other legendaries that are coming in, some interesting healer ones. A little bit of RNG involved, a lot of healers not too happy. I got my gut instinct when I see RNG healer stuff that they're like, you know, I kind of want my things to be on demand because that's how healing works. But they're still a lot of fun. I still quite like the idea of people are going to the resto druids are going to be turning into the big giant trees if they want to do. Gaining apotheosis. I'm just going through now. Your power of radiance has a chance to grant you power infusion. I mean, that's very cool. These are all cool gameplay effects. And that's what I really like. This affects your gameplay. Like when these new ones go off, the new shoulders and stuff, when they actually trigger, it'll change your gameplay on the fly and dynamically, allowing you to do cool stuff. And as many people have pointed out, it actually makes your mana efficiency much better. Not that a lot of healers particularly need that right now, but some do. And that should make it a lot of fun because something's actually going to happen with your character. You're suddenly going to be popping wings as a paladin, and that should make them quite interesting. How they will weigh up statistically against the others, that's down to the math guys when it actually launches, but they still look like a lot of fun. So overall, I'm pretty happy with these rings. My hopes for them are simple. I want them to be the guaranteed reward so we can just go and get them. I want them to be acquired rather quickly. I want them to think of it like they did with the capes going into Siege of Orgrimmar. They made a decision a long time ago. Is what's the point in giving legendaries when people are almost all the way through the dungeon? What's the point? Because by then you don't probably need them and won't get the benefit of them. I want them to say, okay, we can do the class campaign and that's going to set you up for Tomb or Argus or whatever it's going to be. I want them to be doing that. And I do want them to be exempt from the other legendaries so we're not just banking more of the ones that we farmed. I think that's a disservice to the ones that we farmed over the course of the expansion and finally got, say, your best ones. As more and more people every day are getting like, I've got my combo of the best ones. And I feel really good about that. And then these rings come in and it's like, well, ditch one of them. That's really dissatisfying. I want them to move away from that. But there you go, guys. The legendary rings. Enjoy.